warm welcome to all of my friends and colleagues in South Africa, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to address you from far away. It's only 2 hours difference, but a long journey to travel. So I have prepared this presentation for your forum, and I'm very grateful for the organizers to be that I'm able to address the audience. First of all, I'm really proud that I'm talking to the new research class in South Africa, because I think the researchers are the most precious commodity in a society. And we would like to see researchers in very high positions as decision makers, as knowledgeable and informed orchestrators of our economic development. So my presentation today is about ecosystem dynamics, and I would like to enhance your knowledge about ecosystem dynamics. And I would like also to welcome you to the Triple Helix Association and to share with you how we are addressing the challenges of ecosystem dynamics. This slide briefly outlines my competencies. I have done substantial work on business networks, business clusters, global value chains, strategic alliances and partnerships, public-private partnerships. I'm teaching a number of master classes on internationalization strategies, on smart specialization and place-based strategies. I'm very passionate about multi-stakeholder coalitions, how to build them. We know that there is a strong drive for partnerships and collaboration, but very often these collaborations are sought in a dyadic relationships. Multi-stakeholder coalitions are much more difficult to manage. I was just introducing myself in terms of the competence that I have built over the years about managing multi-stakeholder coalitions, about business networks and business clusters. And I wanted to introduce you to the Triple Helix model, which you can see as this three-dimensional spiral of government, industry, and knowledge-producing institutions. As you know, the human body is constituted by the implementation of double helix, and it is so complex. And we can imagine the level of complexity when we have three entangled spirals. Our understanding of the working of the triple helix is still evolving, and what I would like to do is to give you some introduction to the current state of knowledge, the existing knowledge on the triple helix model, and on ecosystem dynamics. And then maybe in our questions and answer sessions, we can see how this model can be implemented to South Africa. I also want to highlight the workshop which I organized at St. Mary's on innovative place-based triple helix approaches to regional development through smart specialization strategies. If you go to the website, you can download and access all presentations of all speakers, and this is a very valuable source for upgrading your understanding about the ecosystems, the innovation ecosystems in UK and in Europe. So my next slide is a little bit of introduction about the triple helix model. Very often it is described as three circles that are overlapping, and these are constituted of actors that are trying to understand the knowledge of the other circle, that are trying to reach out to others. These are university professors that are trying to advise government, or university professors that work on collaborative research or contracted research for industry. These are businesses that are reaching out for university researchers for development of new products and services. These are businesses and governments working together to support small entrepreneurial firms. And you can see in the first model A, little overlaps emerging because of the efforts of the actors in government, in university and industry to reach out to each other. However, what you can see in the middle is a little gap. It's a little space between the three circles, which is called negative overlap. There are huge gaps in their communications, in their understanding, in their consensus, working together. And this is compared to the other model B, which has this dark black space in the middle. And this is the positive overlap. This is when all three stakeholders have established a consensus. They have established a common agenda. They share objectives. They share concepts and knowledge and frameworks. So it's not just about innovation policy. It's about consensus, dialogue, and joint decisions. So ultimately, the triple helix model and the activation and actors is aiming to create behavior in each of the helices that are trying to reach other, to compromise, to reach consensus. And these complex relationships require a very sophisticated orchestration. Now, if you look at this model, it's a very complex model. And what you can see here is that these three spheres of university, industry, and government are very far apart. Within the government, which is performing the normative control, developing policies, exercising political leadership, the dominant process is the political process. And all actors within government, within the government sphere, they are driven by their roles in this political process. On the other hand, the industry is subjected to fierce global competition. There is a market process which is driving the decisions and the choices of industry players. The main factors of production are within the industry. They're in their hands. They hold the resources, the capabilities. However, it is how they channel these resources and capabilities. And how, in addition to working for their competition, they engage with the political and the innovation processes. And if you look at the university researchers are entirely motivated by the innovation process. They are motivated to publish articles, they are motivated to conduct academic research, and there is very little incentives for the university professors to reach out to industry and government. So the forces that are pulling away the triple helix are still very strong. And it is down to personal motivation to overcome those separating forces. Now, this is coming from a survey of European executives and leaders what are the European challenges and why, what are the complexities of the European single market and the European innovation processes the agenda for the stakeholders are to overcome these challenges. So ultimately, the purpose of the Triple Helix is not just to understand each other, but it is to address these challenges in our complex ecosystem. And the challenges for Europe are, of course, Industry 4, how to translate this to all sectors of the economy, the digitalization of firms to improve their productivity, the creation of new high-tech companies, the creation of new jobs, the building of new industries, new emerging industries in biohealth, in circular economy, to improve the industry collaboration, how firms collaborate with each other within value chains, cross-sectoral collaborations, how to achieve economic growth, so how to manage this complex socio-economic system towards economic growth, towards increasing GDP, how to create more entrepreneurs, how to create more flagship companies called unicorns, how to create more spin-outs from universities, or researchers, scientists that are ready to enter, not just to enter the labor market, but to enter as leaders and entrepreneurs of new ventures. So, looking at these challenges, these are challenges not just for the European Union, not just for Britain, they're challenges for any country around the world. So ultimately, the Triple Helix embraces these challenges, embraces the Sustainable Development Goals, and is searching, the Triple Helix is searching for complex solutions to complex problems. And that's ultimately the purpose of the Triple Helix movement, how to develop our knowledge and capacity through multi-stakeholder coalitions to address the global challenges. Here are some definitions of open innovation ecosystems. I hope you can hear me well and you can read the slides on the screen.
Yes.
It is very simple. Ecosystem is a constellation of diverse players, diverse actors that are coming together. They're collaborating around a particular challenge. And they are compelled to collaborate to deliver a complex solution. Competitive forces in competition, by definition, are obstructions to healthy ecosystems, because if the actors in ecosystems adopt a selfish agenda for profit maximization, for rather than optimization of benefits, then we cannot create healthy ecosystems. Now, the second definition, ecosystems have components. They're open systems, but their components are talent, labor, capital, financing, innovators, researchers, but also some agglomerations like clusters, groups of companies, or creative hubs like science parks, accelerators, infrastructure to smooth like digital platforms. They also need connectors, active brokers, facilitators, and promoters of collaboration, as well as soft influencers. These are people that shape opinions. Very often, this is seen as marketing managers, but in the context of the triple helix, those promoters and influencers, they're not just promoting transactions, they're promoting consensus building, they're promoting compromise, coalition building, optimization within the system. So ultimately, the third point is that the open innovation ecosystems require very sophisticated and knowledgeable coordination, facilitation, orchestration, which are critical for managing complex and dynamic ecosystems. And I think you all will agree that these are the most difficult jobs within our society. This is an interesting business model, which is taken from a study on superclusters, megaclusters, and some other agglomerations that already represent ecosystems. And in this model, there are three levels. The first level is mapping the actor, holders within an ecosystem. So we need to draw a boundary. Maybe it is a city, maybe it is a region, maybe it is a country, maybe it is a sector in the economy of this country. And then we look at the stakeholders that are related to these boundaries. The second level, look at strategic co-alignment between these stakeholders. And that's very difficult because if these strategic stakeholders are competing with each other, they can never achieve strategic co-alignment. So within the triple helix, there is a platform to go beyond individual interests, individual incentives, and to search for consensus over the challenges and the goals, consensus over the definitions of the challenges and the formulation of goals and objectives. And then the third layer is recognizing what are the legacies and opportunities that shape this ecosystem. It is recognized in the literature that every ecosystem is path dependent. Path dependent means it depends on its history. It depends on its foundations and its founders. So building new foundations for a new industry or for new regional growth is very important. But what about transforming existing regions, existing communities that are dependent on their past history? And all these three layers are interconnected. So the actors, they come from this history and they have to envisage the future. So the actors are this connecting element between the past and the future. And the actors have to engage in this strategic co-alignment. So the main learning point here is that the triple helix actors are those visionaries that can see beyond themselves, their roles within government, within industry, within academia, and those can, in the name of the future dynamics of the ecosystem, can lead each of them to lead towards consensus and strategic co-alignment. This is a model from another study which is trying to represent the triple helix and what are the constituent parts of the triple helix that need to come together and to drive complex solutions to complex problems. Now, what you can see here is that the diagram recognizes the triple helix, academics, government, and the corporate sector, but it recognizes two other helices, which are very important. This is capital Any development program needs financing, and these are the entrepreneurs. These are the actors that will drive, that can create new solutions and drive through the implementation process. And that's the most simple model, what I will call, for activating the triple helix. The only way to activate the triple helix is through financing, bearing the financial risk, and through entrepreneurial discovery and entrepreneurial development. However, what is not seen in this simple model is that if we go back to economic theory, I don't know whether some of you have studied economics. Perhaps you remember the main factors of production. What are the main factors of production? Of course, the main factors of production are labor, capital, the policy, the legal framework, the government, the entrepreneurship, and the knowledge, but also the territory and the land, the technology and the market access. So these three components, which are in red on this slide, they are actually drivers of the ecosystem dynamics. And this is why recently we have discovered that the triple helix is more visible within specific regions, within specific communities, within specific territories. So the triple helix has roots in the land. It's actors that are born on this land, actors that are acting to stay on this land and to develop this land, this territory. So the land as a factor of production is very critical. In addition, it is known that technology and new emerging technologies, key enabling technologies like ICT, like biotechnology, nanotechnology, these technologies they revolutionize the entire system. In the same way like the internet revolutionized the global economy and our understanding of the global economy, continuously there are new technologies that are emerging, the blockchains, the artificial intelligence. We live in abundance of technologies, and the human beings are absorbed by this technology wave. And technologies are essential part of the solutions, but they're only one component. We cannot expect technology-driven solutions if the human actors have not reached a consensus. And that's one of the lessons which we have learned through the work on the triple helix. And the final point about the market demand. The market demand is there not to, so much in terms of creating competitive force, but fueling the dynamics, the circulation of capital, the circulation of knowledge, the circulation of labor. Without this circulation, it's very difficult for the triple helix to function. I'm aware of the time. I will try to very quickly to go through my slides, just to introduce them, and then if you want to ask some questions, we can come back to these slides. On this slide, this is an example of regional innovation system. You can see it's an open system. It has multiple external players. It has multiple internal players. And it is an entanglement of actors, universities, research centers, funding resources, innovation users, which is the market, technological assets for innovation, institutional assets for innovation, which are the universities, the public sector, the private sector. What is critical here is the shared resources, the shared projects. And this component of shared resources and projects is the vehicle forward towards mobilizing the triple helix. This is a very interesting diagram, which in a very simple way communicates what is happening in an ecosystem. Every actor is struggling to find its own direction. What the ecosystem needs is these lenses through triple helix mobilization that will enable individual actors to develop this strategic co-alignment, to streamline, and then another lens to scale up towards solutions. The next two slides are the measurement systems which are currently used by the European Commission, and the list of indicators that are currently used to measure innovation ecosystems. They don't measure dynamics, but they measure different aspects of innovation ecosystems. And what I have highlighted in yellow are those indicators that relate to the triple helix. And you can see that there are a number of measurements of the inputs from triple helix, but very few measurements of the outputs, what comes out from a healthy triple helix engagement. It is very useful to engage with those measurement systems, not just by government, but by communities, so they start to understand and to reflect on their strengths and weaknesses. This is the purpose of the measurement system, is to measure what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. This is another measurement system which is developed in the UK, and this is mapping the innovation environments in individual regions called local enterprise partnerships. So these are not the traditional regions which we had in the UK. These are more micro regions at county levels. So the system is much more, is constituted of much smaller entities, local, regional entities. And you can see the measurements used to evaluate their innovation potential, including the attractiveness of the location, the digital connectivity, the workforce, labor workforce, and the outputs from universities in each region, the entrepreneurial capacity within each region, and the business activity. The level of entrepreneurship, but also the presence of large companies that drive jobs and job creations. And this is the final slide, which I will use to end my presentation. This comes from research on the 3 cities, smart cities, in comparing their triple helix environments and the impact of their triple helix on the successful implementation of smart cities concept. What you can see at the top, the 2 blue layers are the influencers, individuals, the architects, and the hub are institutions, local authorities, or some other institutions, innovation centers, innovation labs that act as hubs and architects of ecosystem dynamics. The big box in brown is connectors and integrators, facilitators, all these active players that try to reach other within the triple helix. Here we have the capital, the entrepreneurial talent, the knowledge talent, we have the infrastructure, and ultimately, essential component are the resources. Now, what you can see from this model is that the resources are tiny, they're very, very small. It's the multiplication effect, how you mobilize these resources, how you leverage these resources for, how you share these resources among players, that is the great capability of innovation ecosystems, and is the actors' motivation that drive the ecosystem dynamics. I will stop here, as I'm aware that perhaps you're very tired at the end of a long day, and I very much hope that with my presentation I have inspired your interest in the triple helix, its role in managing and orchestrating innovation ecosystems, and I look forward to answer your questions. Thank you.